You are listening to We Saw the Devil, an investigative and conversational true crime podcast that deep dives into fascinating criminal cases that are solved, unsolved, or ongoing. From America's Lori Vallow to Germany's Armin Meiwes, we examine and discuss the world's most shocking cases. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to follow us online. Check us out at WeSawTheDevil.com and We Saw the Devil on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget, you can become part of the show by backing us on Patreon. Hello everyone, you are listening to We Saw the Devil. This is Robin, and I am here with an episode on women and crime. First of all, thank you so much for hanging with me this past week. I was really sick this last week and just unfortunately could not put together an episode. So thank you for your understanding. I hope you enjoyed the feed drop that I did of a friend's podcast, The Path Went Chilly. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and one of my best podcasting buddies, Dr. Jules, from the Riddle Me That podcast, is also on The Path Went Chilly. So check them out. Listen to the last episode if you haven't. Before we get into it, let's just get some really quick housekeeping out of the way. You are listening to We Saw the Devil, obviously. You can find us at WeSawTheDevil.com. From there, you can find us across all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. And also on our website, you can find our Patreon if you're interested in financially backing the show. Beyond that, if you're digging a podcast, not even just this one, but another one, if you're really digging it, take that 10 seconds out of your day, leave that 5-star review, share it. Word of mouth, tell your friends. Content creators appreciate that more than you know. But this episode, guys, is going to be more of a call to action. So frequently, I tell the stories of different cases or different topics, and I really want to hear your stories. I think a lot of us, don't lie, most of you do this too. When you're laying in bed or bored on the toilet, you'll just start scrolling TikTok or scrolling Insta, right? And there's a lot of really cool true crime content on there. But one thing, and I think I mentioned this on an episode a couple months ago or so, one that really, really stuck with me is women whose quick thinking, they had a realization that they were in danger, but specifically their quick thinking got them out of a really, really bad situation and possibly saved their lives. There are some doozies on there. It's on TikTok. I believe they even transferred it over to YouTube. Really impactful, horrible, horrible things. I don't know why over the last week. I guess it's all the true crime documentaries that I've watched while I've been down and out. But it just really got me thinking about the female experience, literally from the time that we are born. That's kind of what I want to talk about. And then we'll get to the CTA later in the episode. We all have different interests in true crime, reasons why we're fascinated by it. I think most of us are fascinated because of the psychology. We really cannot fathom or comprehend how some of these really heinous acts are committed upon other people. Speaking for myself, I've been into true crime since I was a very young girl. I was super odd. Every Saturday morning, my mom would take me to Barnes & Noble to buy me a stack of books. It was our thing. We would go to Barnes & Noble across town, and I would just run the aisles, look at all the different books, and then I would bring them to her one by one. She'd go through them and be like, okay, cool, this isn't, too adult. And then we would be on our merry way, and I would have a nice big stack of books to look over the weekend. It was our absolute thing all the way through high school. So I would inevitably sneak into the nonfiction section and thumb through true crime books, look at crime scenes, way too young, and scare myself with excerpts from the back of book covers that I was definitely far too young at that point to comprehend. When I made it to middle school, I even did a PowerPoint presentation on Jack the Ripper. I tried to include crime scene photos in seventh grade computer class. And for those of you who don't know, I went to a Christian private school, so you can imagine that went over more poorly than a fart in church. My parents were called. And this was before the true crime craze, so if you were interested in anything like that, library, bookstore, that was pretty much it. I read or watched almost all serial killer related material that I could get my hands on. I was fascinated by the psychology behind it. All of my friends thought that I just had a really big case of the morbs, was super weird, and didn't really want me talking to any of the guys that they were trying to impress. But ever since I heard My Favorite Murder For the first time years ago, I thought, wow, I'm not alone. Other women are actually fascinated by this too. Up until that point, all of my friends thought I was a freak show because of that interest. But yeah, after discovering My Favorite Murder, I learned that many women were into, and I hate saying into because that just seems so gross and disgusting, but it's factual. Women are into true crime. And I had zero desire to start my own true crime podcast at that time. At that time, I didn't even want to know about podcasting. I just really enjoyed the stories and the banter on their show. So 2 years ago, I decided to start my own true crime podcast. I felt like there were a lot of interesting cases not really getting the spotlight or recognition that they deserved or needed. Then the Lori Vallow case happened and everything kind of snowballed. And I've noticed, as my fellow podcasters or anyone who's a content creator out there, you obsess over the numbers. You know that you say you don't care, but you actually do care. And you may not even know your own child's birthday, but you know how many downloads you got the day. No, I'm kidding. But seriously, it is an obsession. But I noticed that the demographics of my show fall in line with what we know about the true crime genre as a whole. Women absolutely love it. And for my show, all of you beautiful, lovely listeners out there, 76% of you are female. And I love the community. I have patrons and listeners from absolutely every single age bracket, career choice, educational background, socioeconomic status. I mean, it's such a very diverse group of amazing women with a wide breadth of knowledge on the topic and personal experiences. And then I got to thinking, from a very young age, we're taught so many different things. And it's a uniquely female experience. We're taught not to ever stay out late by ourselves, to always be aware of our surroundings, to dress modestly so that we don't draw attention to ourselves, especially attention from a man with sinister intentions. We're told to always be on high alert, aware of where we're going, walk with purpose. Like when we get our first job, say 15, 16, a lot of the time, we're taught to either get an escort out to our cars, if it's in a parking lot or parking garage at night, carry pepper spray. We're taught how to hold our keys like weapons. Don't forget to check the back seat before we get in. And, it wouldn't hurt you to have someone on the phone the entire time you're walking to your car. Oh, by the way, if at all possible, avoid that parking garage as a whole. In college, we're told not to drink too much, to make sure you watch the drink as it's being poured from the bottle. Nope, and it doesn't matter if it's the bartender doing it. You need to watch that drink being poured. Never leave your drink unattended. Take it with you wherever you go. And then, in the digital age, always meet in public when you meet someone for the first time or go out on that first date. And there are even scripted videos on YouTube that some women put together so that other women, strangers somewhere in the world, if they're taking an Uber, they can use it almost as like a safeguard. It imitates and mimics them quote unquote, talking to their friend so that it gives them the opportunity to state where they are, what kind of car their Uber driver is, and also describe the driver. That heightens the risk for the potential perpetrator, lessening the risk for the female rider. One viral TikTok gave the advice of leaving a single strand of your own hair in an Uber, like on the gas cap or like on the back or push it into the seat or in the floorboard, somewhere where it can't just get vacuumed or cleaned away. Why? Just in case something happens so that your DNA will be present there. The list is endless. And from what I'm gathering, it's pretty much explicitly a uniquely female experience. I asked a whole host of my male and guy friends, hey, when you were younger, when you were little, what kind of safety advice did your family give you? 99% were like, nothing, or come home, shortly after dark, or don't drink and drive. Those were the three things from more than 10 guys that I actually pulled on that question. And I found an article by Gabby Jekyll from Loyola Marymount University, and she totally hits the nail on the head with the ridiculous standards and safety protocols that women are supposed to deal with. So I would like to actually go full credit again to Gabby Jekyll. The article is called Alive is the New Sexy, 10 Top Ways to Avoid Getting Murdered by a Serial Killer. It's by Gabby Jekyll, and then her biography says, is unironically attracted to Keith Morrison. Good for you, honey. This is obviously a satirical article, but I love those that are so socially and politically relevant. So it says, I'm a modern woman. I'm always on the go. I barely have enough time in the work week to do the extra emotional labor expected from us ladies, much less research how not to be murdered by boys. And with 75 cents to a white man's dollar, I don't have the disposable income to afford a car or even backup mace. So I spent the last month binging true crime documentaries and made a comprehensive list of all the common mistakes victims make when trying to avoid death. And then we're going to go through these top 10. 10. Don't live in the suburbs. Specifically, don't live in the suburbs in the Midwest. There's not a ton of evidence to support this claim, but something about it just doesn't feel right, you know? If there's a cul-de-sac, just run. Nothing good can come from that. 9. Avoid men you don't know. You've heard the old phrase, stranger danger. In the words of Cat Stevens, remember, there's a lot of bad and beware. According to everything I watched, literally all murders are committed by men. For real. Like at a certain point, I found myself thinking, maybe I'll just become a serial killer just to flip the narrative. Like, come on, ladies. Number 8. Avoid men you do know. They say stranger danger, but there's actually danger everywhere. Don't be afraid of a sociopath sneaking into your house at night. Be afraid of the man you married and willingly share a bed with. That's where they get you. 7. Don't be a woman. The vast majority of victims are women. If you are a woman, perhaps consider enforcing tips number 8 and 9 to avoid capture. 6. Don't leave your house. A common theme among serial killers is finding victims outside of their homes, in a plethora of other locations. Some of these include parks, grocery stores, Home Depots, graveyards, IKEA, the waiting area at an Outback Steakhouse, and year-round Halloween store parking lots. 5. Don't stay inside your home. In the case of the Golden State Killer, women were brutally attacked within their own homes. So there's no guarantee that staying inside will actually protect you at all. In fact, being at home can give you a false sense of security, so it might be better to be somewhere that isn't your house, but also not your house. 4. Don't have any worldly possessions. Although most serial killers aren't in it for the money, many of them also dabble in robbery. So maybe don't have luxurious items around like cash, jewels, bubblegum, garbage, or tampons. 3. Travel in a large pack of non-men and begin plans to start an uprising against the males. Although I didn't necessarily see this actualized, I have to imagine it would work. Someone try it and let me know. 2. Lock yourself in a bunker forever because we are too deep in this mess to expect anyone to protect women. So it's everyone for themselves, baby. And number 1. Advocate for the dismantlement of the white patriarchy to end the toxic masculine structures that lead men to believe violence is a legitimate and necessary form of self-expression. Elect women to positions of power and create structures to uplift the voices of historically marginalized communities so that we can foster a culture of empathy and nonviolence that places communal good above colonization. But y'all threw a hissy fit over Ghostbusters too, so I don't even know anymore. I love it. That is one of my favorite articles that I have ever read. She hits the nail on the head. It is a beautiful, beautiful satirical piece in my opinion. But when you think about the article and how ludicrous it all seems, stay at home. Nope, you're not safe at home. Go out of your house. Nope, you're not safe there either. Don't go around strangers. Oh, wait, especially your husband. She cites all of these different places, and even though it sounds ludicrous, and for most of us it is ludicrous, go back to the training that you received when you were younger, the life advice on how to survive, and it's just like so ironic. You know, nationwide here in the US, 81% of women reported experiencing some form of sexual harassment or sexual assault in their lifetime. 1 out of every 5 women experienced an attempted or a completed rape during their lifetime. And studies show that students are at the highest risk of sexual assault in the first few months of their first and second semesters at college. There's no other time in a woman's life, comparatively speaking, on average, where the chance of sexual assault is so high. When I went to college, I was 17, and at that time, Antioch College, had a board of current established students, and then also the, freshmen, incoming freshmen, and you could talk to each other. This was back in the days of AOL, guys. I'm ancient. And you could make a friend. Well, I made a friend with this guy. He was turning into a sophomore. I was coming in as a freshman. Super creepy. Obviously, like, the questions immediately got sexual in nature. Hadn't even met this guy yet. And I was done. Completely cut it off. Got to campus, and he was a creepo. Every single woman on campus knew not to go near him. We had a really, really gorgeous nature preserve called Glen Helen that backed up against campus. And one of the far dorms parking lots bordered Glen Helen. And he was always hanging out around there, even though his dorm was on the other side of campus. You just knew, like, the hair stood up on the back of your neck when you saw this creep. He was absolutely revolting. Then when I transferred back in state to take her to Tennessee. I went out with a friend one night, a friend who actually, ironically, had also transferred from Antioch to the school in Tennessee. Weren't even friends while we were at Antioch, but we became friends because how random is that, right, in your life? Well, we ended up going out to a bar with one of her male friends. He and I took a weird flirtation and liking to one another, so he asked me out again. Ended up going out with him. Long story short, nothing really happened, but he did end up stalking me. He did end up showing to my off-campus apartment multiple times. He found out my schedule. He found out where I went on campus. I went to the library one time and he ended up showing up. And the library there was huge. I was upstairs in a room by myself. It had glass, windows all around it, but a conference table. And I was sitting in there by myself. He comes in, sits down, proceeds to commit a sexual act upon himself, keeps trying to grab my hand so that I participate. I jerk back, but I freeze. And I'm sitting in this room, not knowing what to do. He did his thing, and then I bolt out of that room. I bolt out, I go back to my apartment. I'm like, what the fuck? This is insane. This is disgusting. That was assault. I tell my friend, and she was actually working in the women's center at the time, and she says, you need to talk to campus police. I was like, I don't want to be that person. At that point, that was embarrassing. It was gross. I didn't want him to get upset, didn't want to get in trouble. And I decided to contact my mom. I call my mom. I'm like, Mom, this is what happened. What should I do? And I don't remember to this day exactly what she said to me, but it was something to the effect of, no, you don't say a word. You know, basically, boys are going to be boys. Just never go near him again. You don't want to put yourself in further danger. Just leave it alone. And you don't want them to think that of you. That's what my own mother told me. So I go and I decided to go to campus police. And I sit down there with my friend and I tell them what happened. And the officer was like asking me these questions. How do you know him? You know, when's the last time you saw him? Is there a romantic relationship there? I'm like, no. Did you guys go on a date? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he's like, oh, so is this kind of like revenge or it didn't really work out? My mouth dropped open. I was completely blindsided. Nonetheless, I told them what happened. I got the fuck out of there. And they said that they were going to talk to him. I don't know what happened, but all I know is that it stopped. And he did not follow me around campus anymore. And I mean, that's really all that happened to me in college. I was lucky. Some of my college friends weren't. And I put in some hours holding a friend's hand while they cried and vomited over being assaulted, yet too scared or nervous to report it. Or waiting for the actual police to be called by one of my friends as she's sitting there crying. Or spending hours on the phone with another friend who was suicidal because she said that she'd rather die than live with knowing what was done to her. Especially in college, I saw women impacted like this all around me. But I was the buzzkill friend. And if any of you ladies listening are also the buzzkill friend, bless you, it is not a fun position. You and your friends go out to the pub or a bar for a girls' night, and inevitably, he is there. And by that, here's what I mean. Allow me to paint the picture. We're talking about a man that sees his prey. And fellow buzzkill friends, you can spot them a mile away no matter how drunk you are. You could be shit-faced. The second you see this man, somehow you are sober as the day is long. And like some fucked up superhero or cast member from The Boys, you just know that a woman somewhere on there is in danger. These men exude it from their pores. And somehow our intuition kicks in and is like, holy shit, that man is not just a red flag. He is a whole color guard team. Now, they can be by themselves or with a group of their guy friends. And they're almost always the guy from the group that tries to play it ultra cool. But somehow, they always gravitate towards the most intoxicated one of your friends. She may or may not be into it. She may find that he has a face only a mother could love. That's the best case scenario. Or she could be into it and is too intoxicated to really be able to read the room or know what she's doing. And that is her right. But as my fellow buzzkill friends, you go into protection mode. I mean, you're sober, you're like, not on my watch, motherfucker. I have literally had to play tug of war with a friend, my friend in the middle, and some creeper trying to either usher, her out of a bar or into his car on the sidewalk so he could take her and do God only knows what with her. And he may or may not call me a buzzkill, but it's usually some semblance of bitch, or then he asks my friend, why's your friend such a buzzkill? Why's your friend such a bitch? Or, do you let her control you? Things like that kind of gaslighting language. And I haven't dealt with that since I was in college, but it was pretty much a 100% batting average almost every single time I went out in my early 20s in a college bar town. A couple months ago, I told the story of how a man tried to break into my house in Portland, Oregon when I moved there. Tried to come in through the window, and my bird, my beloved cockatoo, Zero, who many of you know, actually alerted me to a man trying to break into the front of my house in Portland. I talked about that in depth a couple months ago. And then another time was 7 years ago. Now, this is pre-Portland. I was actually living in Maine at this time. And this is one of the also creepiest moments that I've ever had in my life. And I don't know how this even happened. I can only imagine. But what happened was 7 years ago, and I remember it because it was the day that I brought my black lab Bathory home as a puppy. I had just gotten Bathory. She was 8 weeks old. And my partner and I decided to stop in South Portland, Maine on the way home and stop in a pet store. My partner stayed outside with Bathory, holding little baby Bathory, and I ran in, got some additional puppy food and a couple little treats because she was so cute. Come out, get into my car, and continue driving home. My partner's holding Bathory outside by the car, letting her potty. I come out of the store, get in the car, and we start driving home. Now, home was about 25-30 minutes south of that. No highway, just, standard city roads. We get about 5 minutes from the pet store, and I look into my rearview mirror, and I see what I can only describe as someone who looks almost identical to Richard Ramirez. I took a quick peek, and literally ice shot through me. Everyone knows I'm not religious. I don't believe in ghosts or demons or evil, ultimate evil, or anything like that. But what I saw, literally, it was evil. It looked maniacal. He literally reminded me, first thought, it had that crazy, feathery, 80s, 70s, 80s, big hair. Face on this man was just pure determination and just anger. It looked evil. My skin crawled. I jumped, I think. I was driving. And then I also took another peep and saw that there was a younger child, a younger boy, 10, 12, 13, in the passenger seat who looked scared shitless, looked absolutely scared shitless. I have never, ever, 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 ever actually in a moment been so scared in my entire life. And somehow, inherently, I knew that they were following me. I get up close to my town, and there are 2 roads that you can take. They fork. One to go into the town, and another one to go to another part of town. So I'm okay, I'm going to get up to this fork, see if he follows me. He follows me. Okay, I'm going to take, obviously I'm not going to go home. At this point, I told my partner, we're being followed. We are being followed. I start making random turns throughout the downtown city, and this person is following me every single turn. And in a not so smart move, and this was probably the dumbest thing I possibly could have done, I decided, I'm okay, I really need to prove it. Even though this person's followed me the last 4 turns, I really need to pull into this really quiet residential neighborhood and see if they pull in behind me. If they are, I'm going to go to the police station. So I pull in, I slow down, I come to the corner, and I pull into this residential neighborhood, and they freaking pull in behind me. My heart is racing. I'm flipping the fuck out. I pull down the street, and the street is very straight and very long. So I'm okay, surely no one's going to attack me in broad daylight. I'm going to park in front of this house like we live here. See if they'll get out, turn around. Either way, I should be able to outmaneuver them if they try something. They are on my tail. I come up to this house, and I literally just slam on my brakes, and I park in front of the house. I was so scared that I couldn't even turn my head to look at this person. They slowly drove by me. They just slowly crept around me and kept going. I was okay, now is the time. I immediately flipped a bitch in the road, sped up to the neighborhood stop sign back onto the main road, took the main road, immediately took a left, a right, a left, a couple others, and I checked back, and they had not had enough time to come out of that neighborhood, cross traffic, and they lost me. I think I drove around for about an hour after that, out in country back roads in the middle of nowhere, a really long way home. I also did, in fact, call the police to report it. But I've never felt that way before. I've never felt that way before in my life. Even when I was woken up in the middle of the night and someone was trying to break in my window, I had never felt that level of fear, evil, maliciousness before. You feel the evil intent. So ultimately, guys, what I want to know is for those of you who have experienced a close call, a near miss. I've talked about this on previous episodes of, wanting to hear your stories and wanting to hear things that you women have experienced. And so this is the episode for that. So I want to hear your stories. And if you would be, so gracious to share them, I want to share those in the podcast. You can email them directly to info@wesawthedevil.com. Also, there's a contact form on the website. If you want to make it simple, wesawthedevil.com. Just hit us up, contact, and there's a form that you can just email and send right over. Also, you're more than welcome to hit us up on Insta and Facebook. To me, when I saw the TikToks and the YouTubes of the women who just in their last split second thinking, got them out of some really, really far hairier situations than I've ever experienced in my life. Like, these are just horrible. And the fact that so many women, I think most women that I've met have a story. They have a story. And it makes sense why women are more so into true crime. But that's it for today, guys. Next episode is coming Monday. Stay safe and have a good weekend. Until next crime.